You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
What? We got our 3D goggles on here. Mike told me to put them on. Whoa, this is cool to watch in 3D. Is it Batman or something? No. Can you watch this on YouTube?
Oh, yes.
This is coming from YouTube.
Yep.
This is quite 3D for... What are we looking at, Mike?
Well, what you're looking at is an Unreal Engine demo. It created the fight that I have recreated and rendered out in 360 stereo spherical using a plugin that's part of Unreal.
What? So you did this. You made this. Well, Unreal made the actual...
Correct. But I rendered it and repositioned a camera so that you can see it the way it is.
So you can actually drag this around like VR.
And this is what it looks like. And sadly, because you can only do one thing at a time with Apple, whatever they call it, their Apple TV, here is the same thing, but you can use it with your VR glasses using the YouTube channel. And I have to say, I was pretty stoked with this. I also
you can actually play that video. You can play that video.
That's correct.
So right now it's paused.
That's well, exactly, because I couldn't actually play it and use airtime at the same time.
Got it.
So, but yeah, right now, see, I can look around. And now the only problem is that this was using a tool called Matinee, and actually it's been updated with a new version. But I've got something else to show you too that's going to be kind of fun. So let me, I thought I'd take it a little further. And so I created this. And I don't know, you tell me what you think. Sure that...
Well, I'm impressed by that that fight sequence. I can't wait to check it out on YouTube. You'll have to throw the link in there.
So I think you'll like this one.
Oh, there it is.
Let me start it. Yep, it's already there. And
okay.
We'll do the show notes. Okay.
Okay.
So here's something else. Let me go ahead and go to my camera. And this is something else I've been working on. Camera, where are you, camera? Let's see.
There it is, off to the right, top right.
Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, so I'm going to position this. Okay, here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here's the latest.
What is going on? What? So even this is in 3D, yeah?
No, it's just put it back. That's all we need. Little characters killing themselves.
So is that a video of your desk or is that a photo?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Yeah, I would like to know.
So, good morning, Chris.
Good morning, All Things 3D listeners. Chris and Mike here. We've got Week in Review. Today is June 10th, 2016. We're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. I don't know. Project Tango, expensive selfies, 3D selfies of yourself, things like that. Things that pop up in the news, and then at the tail end, we'll even talk I'll give you a little tip, the print whisperer, from my life and what I do to improve my prints on a weekly basis. I've got a little tip at the end, and a surprise for Mike.
Oh my! Did something come in and you
Yeah,
didn't
it's a
invite me up?
surprise. It's a surprise.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. I'm beside myself. All right. Well, let's start off with our main theme today. You get what you paid for, and I'll tell you why. Essentially, as you know, I bought the OSVR headset. So let me grab. But I thought I'd go through and kind of say, people complain that the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive are way expensive. But let me remind people that if you get a high quality gaming monitor for your PC, they can run $2,000 easy. And you can, obviously you can cheapen it down and get something for about $300. But the point is, when you look at the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive, there's a reason for its price. And I frankly don't think they're making a lot of money off of it. And let's kind of go through, iFixit, as you know, does some great teardowns, and they went through it. So some of the points to make in this that, a lot of people said, well, the DK2 was only $300. Well, one, it wasn't as ergonomically designed. And I have to say that after trying it on and working with it for a couple of hours, it is very comfortable, very lightweight. I was very surprised with it. And a couple of other things is that it has its own built-in headphones. Obviously that doesn't cost a lot. But what does cost a lot is, one, these custom optics. If you notice, the lens shape is made to conform to your nose, which is extremely important. And more importantly, and you can barely see them there, let's see, underneath these independent tracked lenses is the actual displays. And if you remember, we talked about it before, it has 2 displays, and not just 2 ordinary displays. These are new 120, I think, is the maximum, the 120 frames per second or hertz refresh rate, low persistent dual screens. If you remember, they're 1200 by 1080 or 1080 by 1200. I think they're in portrait mode, so it is 1080 by 1200. And there are 2 of them. So that gives you about 2160 by 1200. It's not exactly quad HD, or not quad HD, quad UHD, which is 2560 by 1440, but it's pretty close. Now, one of the things when I've talked to some of these manufacturers of why you're starting to see these dual screens is because, frankly, they can't push the physically larger screens at more than about 75 hertz. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, the number of what they call MIPI lanes, how much you can push into the panel itself. Normally they're 4. Now with the Note 4 and the newer, Ultra HD, Quad HD. Oh, well, I'm not going to get my acronyms here, but 2560 by 1440 is that they use 8 lanes. But because the physicality, the actual frame of the AMOLED itself, pushing that many and trying to push it at that refresh rate is, as they say, next to impossible. I guess the physics involved there make it very difficult. So if you go with 2 smaller screens, running them parallel independently, you can push the performance up. And like I said, even though that they've pushed this at 90 hertz refresh, you could actually go to 120, and some companies are trying to push it to 120. So this is the reason you're seeing this not only in the Oculus, but also in the HTC Vive. Well, that comes with a price. These panels themselves, if you went out to buy them right now, you could buy them without any of the casing for about $420, $450. That's if you and I went out and bought them right now. Now, remember, the Oculus Rift costs $599. So if you include the infrared emitters, the camera, the conforming headset, this adds up.
The
so
Xbox
really,
controller, the thing that sits on your desk, there's like a little sensor thing that sits on your desk.
There's a camera. So if you put all this together, really you're getting a pretty good steal. Now with the HTC Vive, you have room environment positioning, which means you get even more stuff. And so I really frankly don't see this as being too extravagant as far as pricing. I think it's probably fair. Yes, it'll probably come down, but then there's a lot going in there. Here's the circuit board. Again, it uses a Toshiba HDMI to MIPI controller, which is reasonably priced. But again, to customize the board, you're also working with extremely high frequencies here. There's a lot of work that goes into the engineering. And again, the Oculus Rift is fairly lightweight. So before you start questioning the pricing, you might want to look at that. So again, because of these AMOLEDs. So let's jump over to the HTC VIVE. Basically the same thing. In fact, some people complained it's heavier, and I have to agree with them. The other thing is, you can see here, they didn't go with a what do you want to call it? A conformable lens. They didn't actually go through and have it made to fit the nose with an organic shape. Some of the things, if you go back to that previous iFixit, is they actually added another dimension to the lens. These are Fresnel lenses. So normally the optics are based upon the actual cutting of the ridges, but with the previous one, they actually have another element there that's not available in most Fresnel lenses. And in this case, all they did was chop off the area. It's just literally a line. They just chopped it off to allow for the nose thing. But some people think that the screen quality is better on this. I think that's debatable. There is one difference. The previous Oculus Rift is 3.5 inches. The HTC Vive is 3.6 inches. So your PPD is slightly higher on the Oculus Rift. But again, that gives you a little bit less immersion. So maybe that's what people are experiencing. The other thing is, because of the room environment awareness functionality of it, and here's the circuit board on this, and the light towers. And the thing that if you're not familiar with, these are all little cameras in the housing. Unlike the Oculus, which has just emitters, these are little cameras, and each of these cameras are taking images of the light tower laser. I think it's an infrared laser transmission. So it knows where it's at in space, because each of these accumulate information.
Wow.
So maybe that in itself pushes the price of it. So here again, here's a little picture of all those.
The future is here.
Well, actually, this is the main camera. The other thing is, they built a camera in it so that you could actually see your surroundings. So let's say if you're walking around, you obviously don't want to hit a wall. So that's what you see there. So this is a little bit different too. Instead of using emitters like in the Oculus, they're using detectors in order to determine where it's in space. And the light towers, as they're called, actually provide that laser. I think they're actually a mechanical where they swivel. They actually they bathe the room in a light source, if I remember correctly. So yeah, so you're really getting a lot of technology, a lot of advanced technology. And again, this has the twin AMOLED screens. Both of them are from Samsung. So keep that in mind. So if you were planning to go out and buy your own, frankly, that might be a very difficult thing. So let's get on to, as we talked about, and I have one, you have for $299, you can get the OSVR. Well, there's one thing that I came across immediately yesterday. I bought this back in February. I'm using it for some design stuff. And I was cleaning the screens the other day, and I cracked it. So I thought, oh my gosh. So I tore it apart, and I said, man, I said, well, just send it back. It's on, and then they looked it up and said, oh, I'm sorry, your warranty's expired. And I said, what the, you know what? And I looked back, and sure enough, if you buy one of these, first of all, it's 90 days. Guess what? On the CV and the HTC Vive, 1 year. So keep that in mind. So you might be getting something for about half the price. But if you add, now it's going to cost me about $150 to replace the screen. And you have to send it to them. Now, hopefully, they'll just send me the screen back. But I don't have an answer for that yet. But currently, it'll cost me another $150. And so you're like $50 difference in pricing. And I had to pay for shipping on the previous version, which you don't have to, if I remember correctly, on your CV. You throw that in there, you're almost at the same price. So in my opinion, you get better technology. This is a lower resolution screen. It is only 60 hertz. Don't let them fool you telling you that, oh, this thing can support 240 hertz. That's synthetic. The actual MIPI, it's a 4-lane MIPI. You can't push more than 60, maybe 70. So you can't actually push more than 60 frames per second to the screen itself. So they have some synthetic things because they use this FPGA here to provide this refreshing at a regular rate. And it's something that Sony is doing with their PlayStation, but they use a custom AMOLED screen that actually can support 120 because they've gone with 8 channels with a 1080p. And we've done the math with it already, and we have figured that, yes, you could, with 8 lanes, do effectively 120 with that screen. So they probably have a custom screen that nobody else can get a hold of. This is, because it's open source, is a common screen. And frankly, let's see if I have an image here. This is the reason that the screen crashed. First of all, let's see if I can bring up an image. This is the inside. It's a very, very thin, with a very thin piece of glass. Unlike your phone, which has that Gorilla Glass, this is just a plain, ordinary, very, very thin piece of glass. Very easy. This is all that holds it in place. Is these 2 little what do you want to call it? Metal frames. And then if you look at the back. Let's see if I can push it over and there. This is what's behind it. It's essentially a plastic frame and only 2 points of contact. So you have a PC board on the other end, but that provides a little bit of give. So if you push this hard enough, obviously I did, you can crack the screen. So
I've done that with a little mini LED. Those little OLED screens, yeah, they don't have very much meat on them. Like they're really easy to break, especially if you try to peel them off and move them from where they're supposed to go. Yeah. Really fragile.
So here's the other issue. If you can see it in the image here, these are the lens systems. And one of the things I found is that the OSVR is really heavy compared to other devices. And part of that is these lens systems. It's a dual lens. And I thought, wow, this will be a great feature. But I found that it's actually too good and really shows all the weaknesses. Again, this is a 1080p screen. And even though it's an RGB, which RGB subpixel instead of Pentel like the previous version, I found that the shadow mask is glaringly obvious because essentially they took a 5.5-inch screen and you have to distribute all these pixels, which means you have to distribute them. What do you do with the extra space? Well, they filled it in with black, and that becomes very obvious. And again, they probably did this because the panel was in use or common. So the problem is, see this gap here? Can you see my cursor? This is, dust can get in there. That was the problem. You know, if you, like me, if you're snacking or something can get in there, which is what happened. So I thought I'd, get it out because it kind of stuck to the screen. Okay, I know, sloppy, but the whole point is it's quite possible. The previous versions are all encased and housed, so you don't really have access to the screen, so it's probably very difficult to get dust in it. Not the case here, and frankly, it was a little difficult to pull this all apart. And if you don't pull it all apart, there's very little access area, and like in my case, you poke it too hard, you can crack the screen, and it'll cost you $150. So keep that in mind. You're not really getting, as I say, you get what you pay for. And the other thing that I found is, again, I didn't buy it as an actual practical source. I bought it because of development. I found that software and support for it has been difficult, to say the least. Many of the drivers that allow you to use it with the Steam OS system are experimental, and I had some, you have to, like a lot of open source, you have to put a lot of time into it. All right, so there's the points. You may be spending a little bit more money for the others, but there's a reason for it. If you want to get into experimentation, do so, but be very cautious. The components in there are probably on the lower end and not as supported as well as previous versions. So that's just my little tip of the day. And Chris, why don't you start us with a news item? I know I've been blobbing for a few minutes now. I can see you scratching your head and looking all around. And
do you want to Tango with your phone? Up close and personal with the first Tango phone. This is an Engadget article. Lenovo's Fab 2 Pro has a lousy name, but Google's 3D mapping technology could make it a game changer. And so the new Tango phone is here by Lenovo, and Engadget got their hands on one. They have an interesting video over at their website, and what's interesting about this phone is not only does it have a regular camera built in, but it has the new Google Project Tango camera, and it is used for 3D mapping. The video shows some hands-on stuff, and they talk about it a little bit, but they really didn't give any detailed view other than this little, in the article itself, they have some augmented reality type stuff that they showed off, but it was pretty brief.
Yeah, and let me go ahead and fill in some gaps there. Yeah, as you know, Chris, I've been working with augmented, mixed reality, and virtual reality for about 1.5 years now. And I was really looking forward to this. But the sad thing is, if you look at the specs, this isn't even the fastest processor out there. Even though it's got a custom processor for the Tango, unlike the tablet plus one, look at it. That's a 7-inch tablet behind it with the NVIDIA K1 chip in it, and it's almost the same size. They say this is a behemoth of a product. It's a
but it does have the new Snapdragon Qualcomm processor.
It does not. No, it does not. It has a 645, not the 820.
Oh,
and,
I thought it had the new one.
It does not, and that was something I was looking at too. It's large. So if you were looking to get something that is compact, that is not the case. Some people speculate it's because of the camera system itself requiring more space in order to hold it together, I guess. And so that's one of the reasons for it. Intel also had a version with their own sensors that was Tango compatible, and you could buy that as well, and it's about the same size. So there's something about getting all this into a package. It was also a reason why Google, I don't know if complaint would be the proper word, but they felt that they really need to start asserting themselves to get people motivated to create more custom technology, because the current technology really isn't there yet. And later on, I have some information to kind of identify that with my usages of Daydream, especially with the Unreal Engine. It's not quite there yet. Again, I don't have one of the latest phones, but I'll explain to you in a little bit. I'll show you why. But yeah, Tango.
What is Lowe's Vision? I want to know what that is. I noticed that on the screen. I was like checking it out. It's like, does it help you find things in Lowe's?
Exactly.
It must be.
When I was at Aud in 2015, Lowe's had a little booth, and essentially, yeah, that's exactly it. There's like a kiosk, and you take your phone to it, and it literally will show you items from the catalog. It was kind of funky. But yes, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It wasn't one of the items I put into it. So let's kind of move on to my next item. You know, 3D printing has become ubiquitous when our favorite communist country, actually, I don't even know if they're communists as much as they're a dictatorship, North Korea, is getting into 3D printing. But you know, if you thought that the Chinese rip off other manufacturers, at least they have the what do you want to call it? The knowledge, foresight to at least take the icon off, or yeah. So this is what they didn't even actually have one on display, but this was like a brochure of the North Korean 3D printer with the MakerBot. So obviously, one of the things they've identified, here it is, the MakerBot replicator kind of looks the same there. But they talked about it just, as we know, it provides flexibility, and they say it will lower the cost of customization, which I guess it could. What's funny is that that's the dual extruder version. You see that? And I'm wondering, yeah, that's also dual. So interesting. So yes, I don't know how that's pronounced.
International The International Trade Fair.
Hmm.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it seems like they've opened up a little bit more. I've been seeing more and more videos coming out of NK. And
Yeah, well, that is up for debate. Obviously, yes, they're trying to show that, hey, we're not so backwoods. Look at us.
they're softening their fascism a little bit. They're maybe adopting some of the U.S. policies.
I don't know about that.
Softening.
They're wanting to
Going
give
soft
everybody
fascism now. They're realizing how the other countries, a lot of other states have it figured out.
well, who knows? I mean, obviously,
Just don't be so obvious about it, and people will go along with it.
oh well. So I just thought that was kind of funny that even in North Korea,
interesting.
3D printing is becoming a thing.
Yeah. Well,
All right, Chris, your next
is
item.
coming from 3Ders.org, one of our favorite sources. You can now buy a life-size 3D printed replica of yourself for $3,000. That's not very much for a life-sizer. This company, Voodoo Manufacturing, out of New York, has these models that they can make of you, and they print you in 88 separate segments on these MakerBots, and then reassemble you. So they scan you in, and then they split it up, and then reassemble it. Look at all these little MakerBots they got. That's a serious amount of MakerBotage.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
I wonder if they bought those during the closeout of the Brooklyn.
Well, I think, aren't they in Brooklyn?
Yeah. So they might have gotten a closeout deal.
Or maybe Voodoo, if I remember correctly, is their manufacturing branch.
So it's
Funny.
showing that there's all these different scanners. There's a video too that kind of accompanies this video, this article, 3Ders.org article. And so it's showing that there's all these different scanners out there, and points are not people. Wow. And you upload it. Yeah, so pretty cool.
Well, the important thing, and one of the reasons that I threw this in there for you to cover, is my next item.
Okay.
Which I'll jump to is, yes, that seems affordable. I mean, if you're that, well, I won't use the word narcissistic, but conscious of yourself and want your own full version. I know that somebody's got a full-size head over there, but now you can get the rest of your body, but you could have printed your own body years ago. All right. I thought this was kind of funny.
I don't think I would, though. I don't really have
obviously.
It just takes up space.
But let's say you wanted a body double. For $59,000, you can get a full color version, but it kind of looks like the low polygon version of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, put that in a meeting. That's kind of scary. But yeah, so essentially, if you wanted a full replica, I guess a company called Quiche 3D has a deal for you. For Mother's Day, you can get a full-size replica offer. $59,000 on Australian Groupon, and make yourself. And yeah, obviously the big difference is it is full color. What are they using there? Is that
looks like a Z-Core machine?
Z-Core, yep. Yeah, and then that's why they had a link at the bottom of the article here. So, hey, thank you again, 3Ders.org. Tess, you obviously covered the high end, and the low end. Actually, the low end as far as smoothness and more realism, and the fact is you could turn yourself into a Greek goddess or god statuette, and I'll bet you already there's somebody who's done that. Somebody with a lot of money has a statue, and they probably said, why does that look like you?
That is a really cool looking model, and I want more pictures of it.
To this one here?
of that guy. Like, he's got a really dorky kind of thing going on. He's like,
There you go.
what?
That's kind of, I don't know.
He's like lounging. Yeah, I don't really know why. Yeah, I don't know why you want that, but yeah, who knows? I probably like Nordstrom's will have a bunch of these.
The whole thing is why. Okay, here's the thing: if you're going to do this, why not just create a realistic head, and then just get a mannequin body for the rest of it, and then you can articulate it, put clothing on it, because to me, to print out the whole thing doesn't make a lot of sense. And then just have the head, and you could articulate that.
Well,
and
even that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not really a practical thing.
Well,
this isn't something you're going to use like for like practical things. At least maybe you are. Maybe somebody has some use for this that I'm not thinking of, but I just don't see any practical. But who knows? I don't go and spend $60,000 on big pieces of art,
Exactly. Well,
Just
who
not my
knows?
thing. There's some people out there that's their thing, and whatever, they earn their money and that's their thing.
Well, and then you actually have to go to Auburn, Alaska, in order to get scanned.
Auburn, Alaska. These people are doing this in Alaska. Okay. I didn't know there was a lot of tech up there, but apparently there is.
Maybe during the cold months, this might be useful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so you can cuddle up and warm yourself with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well,
next item, Chris.
Next one's coming to us from 3dprint.com. Obviously, another one of our favorites. This is Flirtey to conduct a first ship-to-shore 3D printed drone medical supply delivery demonstration in the U.S. Flirtey is a company that makes UAV drones, and they're trying to develop a drone delivery service. They're not just trying to develop the hardware itself, but they're actually trying to provide end-to-end solutions. And the first project that they're demoing, or one of the first projects they're demoing in New Jersey, is medical supply deliveries from a ship that lands at port and bringing it in. So they're joining up with Johns Hopkins University, apparently, and they are going to try to simulate a humanitarian disaster scenario and delivering rapid response medical supplies. So there's some images of the actual Flirtey drone, but it's all mostly carbon fiber tubes, but there's a lot of 3D printed components you can see, like the motor mounts and the body, and that kind of lets them speed up the development of this platform. And
yeah, that looks like an off-the-shelf frame.
Yeah,
like
but a lot of the components, and so there's a little video here, and here it is taken off, and they're just, like I said, if you go to their website, they are trying to not just sell the platform itself. Their thing is the actual logistics software, and the actual they're actually trying to come up with an end-to-end solution, and that not only does medical supplies, but also any logistics, really. So yeah, here it is going over some terrain that would obviously be impossible, or damn near impossible, to get through with a car or even a motorcycle. I mean, that's some serious rugged stuff. And it can cross over in about, way faster than you could by foot. And it could go and deliver. So, little video, go check it out, 3dprint.com. It's called Flirtey. It's Flirtey, but it's EY at the end. And it's stuff by air.
Well, mine's a little more science fiction. EU is funding a replicate brain neural network through 3D nano printing. We have talked about nano printing in the past. You remember having the 3D artist on, kind of the crazy guy, can't remember his name right now, who created those very, very real tiny little things that you had to look through on the
Oh
microscope.
yeah, that was
So-
insane.
Yeah, so I think this is probably very similar, but essentially by creating a 3D scaffolding structure, they are taking stem cells and growing brain tissue or the neuronal networks on the scaffolding in order to create the actual brain's neural network. So this will give them the ability to actually see and look at the brain activity outside of it. So they're literally going to be growing cell by cell, neuron by neuron, a brain. That's the goal, at least. So there's a little bit more here on what's going on, but I think, you know, we're already aware that you can print in extremely small sizes, and here's an opportunity to take that. As you remember, we also talked with the people at Rice University some time back about using a scaffolding process in order to deliver nutrients and export waste. And if you remember, I mentioned, oh, it sounds like fractals, and they kind of said, what? So essentially, maybe they're going to be using something similar, or it might be planned out exactly how the structure is created. But so it appears that creating a framework is important for these cells to grow. So I think that's interesting. It doesn't really say what the material is they're using, or at least I didn't see it here. But I know in the case of the Rice University, it was a sugar-based scaffolding system that literally would dissolve as the structure grew around it and used it actually for food or nutrients. So I don't know what they plan to do with this here, and it doesn't really say. So another use of very, very tiny 3D fabrication.
Crazy. That's
It
crazy.
is. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So this was an interesting one. Also,
You know what? Hang on.
oh, go ahead.
Well, actually, there wasn't any images, so that was fine. So go ahead. Sorry about that.
3dprint.com again. There was a lot about this week, actually. And according to Shapeways, because they've published a new white paper this week. Shapeways, huge service bureau, right? Does 3D.
Cover that last week.
Yeah. So, but there's been some updates. There was actually, but they published a new white paper saying that 3D scanning and copyright laws. So you can't. They're saying you can't really copyright 3D scans unless you inject
Your own
something
creative
that's
content.
or if you know what they say is if you inject something that's already copyrighted. So, like if you 3D scan a photo that's copyrighted, they're saying that it injects. This is according to their legal expert. But then I read on Google another article that contradicts this completely. So obviously they're saying that copyright laws need to change to kind of catch up with the times with 3D scanning. But other people are saying that this is just not the case and that 3D scans are covered. So I don't know who to believe. I would think that 3D scans are covered under copyright, but according to Shapeways in this white paper, they're saying no.
Yeah, and my interpretation of that is that they liken this to actually 2D copiers, where if you took a document and made a copy of it, you can't copyright that copy because it's a mechanical process. And they're saying even though a lot of time is spent in order to create the 3D object, it is still just a copy, so it follows under the same laws. But as you said, obviously that's an eye-opener, and we probably need to revisit that because the complexity and the amount of work that goes into creating a 3D object is a lot more than just a Xerox copy. So yes. And on that note, I've never used Snapchat. Have you ever used Snapchat?
Never.
So obviously, supposedly this is the big thing with kids because from my understanding of Snapchat, again, I'm going to be ignorant here, essentially you can take an image or a short video, send it to somebody, and then it disappears. So you can see that's probably great because there's no historical existence of whatever you did. So supposedly very common and useful for kids and those that are cool. I don't know. So Snapchat is looking at, or I guess they said secretly acquires a 3D face scanning app seen 3D selfies. I don't ever remember seeing this, but essentially it has the ability with your 2D camera to capture, and then we'll run the little video here, a scan of your face, and then apply a texture. Well, I mean, that's extremely important because if you've noticed in the past, it's been very difficult.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling this is very similar to a process that I've seen and that I used a long time ago, where if you captured images from the front and the sides, you can interpolate from that the three-dimensional positioning, and then you essentially modify, what do you want to call it, a blank face with the conformities of your own face. So you're not working from an actual, you're not creating a mesh. That's kind of funny. You're actually just kind of using certain key points in your own facial features. As you notice, he rotated his face back and forth, and then using that and applied them to kind of a blank model. So I have a feeling that might be it. And then I think down here on the left is the actual texture mesh that's wrapped around it. Again, I don't know. It's my guess. But unlike Project Tango or even the occipital scanner, which literally uses an infrared transmission and then takes the modification of that through its own special camera to come up with depth mapping, this just uses your standard camera phone. So it'll be kind of cool. I know that people have been working on something like that. Here's another image of it. Actually, can I? Yeah, I'm moving it around. It's being used in 3D print. Your mic just went haywire, Chris.
My mic went haywire?
Yeah. Yeah. Now you're... Go ahead and talk.
Am I here?
Yeah, you're good. The volume just went up. So I thought that was kind of cool. All right. What's your next item, Chris?
All right. Am I too high again or no?
No, you're good.
Okay. This is pretty awesome. Getty Images, obviously a huge stock photo video. I think they're the biggest on the planet. They own like all of the major outlets for buying stock photography, you know, graphics, anything stock. They are now gone live with their VR content. So they've got a library now that they're starting to publish for 360-degree stills, 360-degree videos, gigapixel images that are professional quality on Getty Images now. So they have gone live with VR content for the Oculus and other VR devices. And they are also trying to lead with a project called 360 Cities, where you can tour around cities in 360-degree, high def. And obviously, this is just the beginning. So head over to gettyimages.com and you can check out their blog post.
Yeah, I was looking at this last night and didn't spend a lot of time, but I noticed that these are basically spherical 360s. They are not stereo spherical 360, which means you don't really have any depth information in there. And or at least that's what I noticed. There might or may not be, but I noticed in looking at some of these, you could rotate them, but you couldn't put on your glasses or view these in your actual VR and actually get depth cues. And that's something that's coming up. We covered, I think, a camera some time ago that will allow this. It's obviously, and then there's the Google Jump. Now, there's a lot more to creating a panoramic for stereo imaging than just a spherical camera. But I guess this is a start, and one of the things that they suggest in using this is that you could kind of use this as a background for something else. As you know, with Getty Images, a lot of people use those in their own content making. So maybe that's the main purpose of it. Don't know, but who knows? There'll probably be stereo imaging, and again, that's in order to capture depth. And then there'll be probably something newer in the future, and which I'll talk about in a little bit. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit, Chris. You know, we've talked about Magic Leap. I went through and dissected their previous patents. So they finally this week identified in a patent what they are at least proposing this thing will look like. Why do I feel a little bit like the alien?
What is this thing?
So this, I don't know what it is. However, this is the visor unit, and this is the back plate. But you put this on your head, and it looks, honestly, in my opinion, extremely ugly. Ugh. So if this is what this thing is going to look like, I don't know how this is going to be any different than the HoloLens. And, you know, a lot of people have been very concerned because of their secrecy. They've shown some images out there that look fairly cool, but nobody's actually seen the technology. And, you know, even though some previous patents showed that it was some eyeglasses, and as you remember, I thought, you know, this is going to take a lot of horsepower to actually pull this off. Because if you remember, it's multi-layers so that you can get the proper fovea and depth information so you can focus. You remember, it was a multi-layered system. And some people thought the horsepower. And again, this only shows a shell. It doesn't show how they're going to handle that. Is that going to be an attachment that goes on your waist? Who knows? But I don't know if I want to be seen wearing this. But, you know, as some people said, a patent doesn't, I guess they've filed some, just, what do they call them? Some idea patents, and this is actually a design patent. So if this is, again, what they plan to be putting out, this isn't going to be as friendly as putting on a pair of glasses. But I'm not surprised. And this was brought up by a couple of other blogs as well. What do you think, Chris? You going to wear this around? Huh?
I don't know. I don't know. It looks pretty futuristic. This is something they want you to wear actually like around? Or
Yes.
is this just like a regular VR like Oculus where you wear this when you're in the space of VR?
No, you know, again, if this is the front of it, it's supposed to be transparent. And the images probably project. I don't know how it works. Have no clue. I do know when looking at the previous version, the eye portion was a kind of a spherical, and then they would project onto it. Actually, they wouldn't project. It was light valves, and you would literally turn them on and off in order to create the images. But it was based upon what it was seeing and knew exactly where it was in space in order to provide the proper focusing, and could be controlled. So you could actually look at, if you remember that one galaxy or the solar system, he was able to focus on a planet further away or near. So all of that had to be not only the ability to adjust those light valves, but the ability to track your own eyes to know where you're looking at in order to determine where you need to focus. And to me, that seemed like a lot of hardware that needs to be miniaturized, and to get those in glasses, I was kind of skeptical. This, yeah, possibly. And this bridge here is like the wire harness in order to feed that off. But who knows? Again, this could be just a spin to make people think that this ugly thing is what they're putting out, and it could be a pair of glasses. Who knows? No one knows with them. All I know is they got lots of money for some technology that no one has seen. And those people have seen it have been either under NDAs or been very narrow on what they could write about, which I don't know. I have a problem with that personally. All right, Chris, what's your next item?
Well, I think we're into the VR corner in a round room, and if you have some other stuff you want to cover besides the Magic Leap glasses.
Well, I actually do. I've got all kinds of things. I thought this was kind of cool. So let me jump back. This is zero latency. So as you know, we talked about another company, and I can't think of them. You remember the name of them, where they've got a place in Utah that you can literally don a headset and walk around
Right.
with a group. But it seems like that is a more deliberate plan. They use some techniques of what they call circular hallways that loop around itself to give you the experience that you're walking forever and ever. But it's all planned out. And to move these from one location to another might be more difficult. So this is, as they said, powered by Alienware, which I guess is the computers. But essentially, and I'll play the little video here. Actually, I have a better video.
Keep your calm, you idiots. They're just zombies.
This, want to open up one of these? Find a warehouse somewhere.
More undead in the area. Clean them up. You're all a foolbar if you don't keep those undead out.
Well, my take is it's going to be really hard for a place like this to compete once, I mean, for a year or two at the most, because VR is coming to every home, every gamer now is going to have VR in their home. It's the new gen. It's the future for sure. I've tried it. I've done it. And there's no doubt about it. It gave me the feeling, it gives me the feeling of when I went over to a friend's house and saw a Nintendo 64 for the first time and saw the Mario, right? When Mario 64 came on, that changed everything. It was the first time we had real 3D walk around open world with like a major platform game. And VR now is doing that all over again. And I feel like it's the first major leap we've had in probably 10 years, really, of gaming. Like, besides the Wii was great because that actually gets you moving, but this is like the next step. And so my take is from a business standpoint, I don't know how long-lived these kind of experiences are, because if everybody has a VR headset, your friend can bring one over to your house and you guys can play together all you want, or find your own warehouse, or find your own park or whatever.
Well, here's the key, and this is why I think this model could be successful. The in your house is made for a room. This is made on a much larger scale, which is why you wear these dorky little Christmas bulbs. Essentially, those allow you to track a warehouse scale.
Right.
The HTC VIVE is essentially a 10 by 10 room, maybe 20 by 20 maximum. So you can get maybe one or two people. So yes, you have the in-house experience. So,
and for the development and for developing and kind of pushing the envelope of the technology, I think we're going to need to have spaces like this where developers can go and actually develop experiences that are going to translate into the mass adoption VR market. Because I think that's where most of the users are going to be, is actually buying these, whether it's a PlayStation VR or a Nintendo VR, or or an Oculus, or even the HTC, these headsets. I think developing interactive experiences for the VR, I think they're going to need spaces to do that. And so from a development standpoint, I think this could be a great idea. As far as paying $88 per person to go and do it yourself, just for a game or to play an experience, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's kind of speculative on my part to say whether that's a make or break deal. So,
well,
especially for a long term, I'm looking long term. Like, okay, where is a business like this in 10 years? Because it'll be a totally different thing in 10 years. But because I think everybody's going to have, these units, and to get somebody to pay $88 to wear a unit you already own but play in a warehouse.
Yeah. Have you heard of Chuck E. Cheese?
Yeah. But Chuck E. Cheese is a quarter at a time, right?
Yeah. Well, again, the pricing needs to come down a lot. But I
Yeah.
could see this, and again, do we want children experiencing VR? That's still debatable.
Yeah.
But let's say, if you had a young teen party that you could take them to, have pizza and have them spend an hour and something like this, I could see something like that working.
Well,
But
and
again,
yeah,
the pricing
or
would have to come down to, let's say, like $200 for a afternoon party or something like that, which, maybe the whole cost of this is just way too pricey.
incorporating these into amusement parks. Even I have a new friend I made this week that he was telling me he rode. I guess they have like a Batman ride at Magic Mountain right now, and it has an Oculus VR built into the ride, and so you're riding a roller coaster with a VR headset on. And he said it's absolutely one of the coolest rides he's ever gone on, because instead of just riding a regular roller coaster, you've got missiles flying at you and you've got all kinds of stuff going on. You can feel like you're still seeing the same roller coaster type thing, but you're flying on a jet or something, he said. I can't wait to go try that out. That sounds fun.
Yeah, and actually, I don't think we reported, but I had seen it in the news, and some people said, why would you want to do that? Well, it makes sense because now you get all the G-forces that you would on a roller coaster, and then if you tie that, like you said, to a jet or something, you probably get even more of the sensation. Physically,
Yeah.
the vestibular system
And he
doesn't know
said there's
what's going on.
missiles coming at you, and it's just crazy. He said it's nuts. So
Okay. Well, one other thing that I thought was interesting, and I found this when I was doing researching, Sensix, which, we just talked about why you shouldn't buy an OSVR. Sensix is the company behind. They obviously put a lot of time in to create that. Again, remember, OSVR is open source. So if you wanted something to experiment with, that's what you would buy. But do not buy it thinking you're just going to get a low-cost version of the Oculus Rift. And we covered that early on in the episode. But Sensix has been doing VR for years, and they do a lot for the military. But they were asked to come in and actually create this experience, so they're involved in what you're seeing here. So there's another article that ties into that that'll be in the show notes if you want to know more about what Sensix. I think Sensix, and talking with the CEO of Sensix through emails for one of my own projects, I do think that they're on the cutting edge, and the fact is that they've devoted so much time and effort to an open source platform. I give them a lot of kudos for. All right, so let's move on to my next item. So if you have SteamOS, you can now download the Destinations Workshop tools. Caveat, you can download them, but if you don't have an Oculus Rift or a device like an Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive, they're useless, because as soon as I tried to bring them up, because I didn't have my Oculus Rift on, actually I had the DK2 modified, it didn't do anything. So keep that in mind. You really can't work with the tools unless it sees a headset. And maybe that's just because I didn't set it up correctly, but my first try at 3 o'clock in the morning didn't do anything. What is cool about this, though, is that it's using the new Source 2 engine. If you remember playing Half-Life or even, what was that, at Portal? That was just the Source engine that's been evolved. Supposedly this is number 2, which has newer tools to work with. I found that the Source tools were left a lot to be desired, kind of like a cobbled thing, and you had to, at least that was my opinion. You could do things with it, but it just didn't seem the UI and the editor was as polished as the Unity or the Unreal Engine. So I'm really looking towards this. They also use some photogrammetry techniques to create some hyper-realistic vision. This is, if you're looking at my image, actually, damn it, sorry again. I'm looking at you and not changing. So here it is. What they're showing here is how it creates depth maps based upon the photogrammetry. So then it gives you actually a 3D perspective, so you could walk around in these environments.
okay.
So imagine photogrammetry, but taking the depth information and allowing you to walk around with your HTC Vive. God, that's awesome. I just want to go out and buy one now.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't, because you won't need to in the future, but that's all I can say right now. But yeah, Citadel has one up, and I don't know if they're working with them or not, but they wouldn't really tell me. But I guess there might be something going on. But I thought this is pretty cool to use photogrammetry. We did talk about using this before, but with the Destination Workshop tools, it is built in. So that is out there now. You can download it. As I said, make sure you've got your Oculus Rift or HTC Vive. Otherwise, it's useless. And let's move on into something else. And, I saw this and I thought, oh, goody, they've got it. No, actually, in their blog, Lumberyard. Now, Amazon created something called Lumberyard. We've talked about it before. This is using, as I remember, the backstory is Crytek was having some problems financially. Amazon came in, bailed them out. Part of that bailout was to get access to source code, and they did, and they have been moving with it. So beta 1.3 will be coming out in a couple of weeks, which will now provide both for the Oculus and the HTC Vive the ability to use their VR engine or game engine with VR. And then they talk about something called gems, which means that you could literally use this for other platforms, not just those two, the open VR devices, which is the HTC Vive.
Gems is a Rails. That's a Ruby on Rails terminology, isn't it?
Yeah, I have heard of it. There's another thing that's I
yeah,
don't know
Ruby
what
gems, Ruby and Ruby on Rails. When you basically they call plugins or modules gems, I think is what they. So I wonder if this is built on Rails.
Yeah, I don't recall what their scripting language is, but there could be some truth to that. We'll have to dig into that. More importantly is why the hell did Amazon call this Lumberyard? And I started thinking about it. Well, what is Amazon known for? Books. What do you need for books? Paper. And what does paper come from? Trees. Lumber yards. I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching it there, but because I thought it was kind of funny.
I think lumberyard could also be like building materials, building blocks, Well,
I think that's the term lumber, but you could use like construction site or something else. Why specifically lumberyard? But that's what came to me. I don't know. I'll have to ask him. I do have a contact. Maybe we'll have them on to actually show more about this. So let's see. I think you already covered that. So I guess, let's see. Do I have anything in my area? I think I kind of covered
the Oculus debug tool.
Yes, thank you. Did I actually bring this up? Let's make sure that I've got it. Here we go. So yes, if you're getting an Oculus Rift or have one already, and you feel that the quality just isn't what you want, there's a debug tool if you download the development kit that allows you to modify the settings in order to, and what they do in order to improve the performance is they kind of downgrade the textures or the images. So this allows you to go in there and actually see how it says pixels per display per override. So you can actually go in there and modify a value from between 1 and 2 to improve the this, what do you want to call it, the resolution. But they do make an important caveat, is that by pushing more pixels, you may severely limit your frame rate. So use this with caution. But if you're just looking at images or maybe video, this might be something to look at. So they're using a 980. Keep in mind with the new 1070 and the 1080, this might be able to handle it with no problems at all. So you might want to go ahead and look at it. And they talk about 2 games where this actually was very beneficial. So a tip for my friend Chris, who very, very soon, maybe that's that little surprise, I don't know, will have his own hands on an Oculus Rift CV, so he can immediately start moving forward with improvements in it. Something else that I wanted to make a point on, that in breaking down these dual screens, there is no reason in the future, maybe not in this version, that you could literally independently run 2 channels. If you remember, NVIDIA can now run multiple streams where they can do all their VR distortion of that as an independent. You can do this on independent channels. So literally you can improve the performance if you ran independently channels. Currently they're using 1.3 or 1.4. If you go to 2, you can literally run independent streams for stereo. So, and again, I'm talking about HDMI 2.0. Currently it's just one stream that they're running at a high bandwidth, but in the future you could actually run 2 independent streams. And if you had, let's say, dual SLI or even some of the new 1070 or 1080 cards, you'll be able to run everything as independent screens with much better performance. So I'm looking forward to that too. So another reason those dual screens are going to be important in the future. All right, Chris.
Okay.
You've got some fun stuff, huh?
The Print Whisperer is here to give us our tip of the week. So this week, I want to talk about organization, cleanliness, obviously. It's kind of spring. We're kind of late for spring cleaning, but I do want to make mention. A clean and organized working environment makes you more productive, and it also makes you appear much more professional if you're in a working environment, whether it's your friends or your clients, your colleagues. Their perception of you will appear more professional if you have a clean working environment and organized. And not only that, but you will be more productive, period. Your time will be more productive. You'll get more done. And so how do I do it? I start by completely removing everything from a space. So if you've got a room that's cluttered, just take everything out. It seems like it would take forever, but it really doesn't. If you've ever moved before, you know that you could move a whole house in a day or two. So one room, if you spend 3 or 4 hours cleaning it, it just doesn't take that long. It seems like it would, but it doesn't. And it makes sense to not half-ass it. Don't half-ass it. Just take everything out. You don't have to move all the furniture, but it does make sense to just remove all the monitors, all the computers, everything. It's a good chance to take your computer outside, blow it out with some air, you know, vacuum the space, wipe off all the surfaces. And what I do is I actually have those plastic bins, like the clear plastic bins that I get at Costco. And I organize the things that are on the desk that usually are all cluttered and they kind of get disorganized. Take computer components, take junk, put it in a box, take trash, throw it away. Take stuff that you're never going to use, take non-essentials and either donate it or put it in a box to donate it. Stuff you haven't touched in months and you probably never will. It's a now or never type situation. If you think you're going to touch it or use it, then maybe put it in a box to you know, in your maybe use box. But if you're never going to use it, don't hold on to it. Sentimental things, just throw them away. I mean, not super sentimental, but ticket stubs and stuff like that, sometimes not worth saving. So get rid of them because they just clutter your space and they really make you unproductive in the end. So yeah, wipe everything down. And then when you're ready, repopulate your desk or your work surfaces, but don't do so cluttered. Try to keep everything minimal because what that'll do is kind of keep everything open and you'll know where everything is. And trust me, you're going to really like this. If you do it once, you're going to get addicted. And so my take on it is make it fun. Put on your favorite tunes and just make it an enjoyable thing. And then you know, if you need help, I read this book or listened to this book, I should say, maybe about a year ago. Let me bring it up. It's an Audible book. I included it in the show notes. It's called, let's switch to my screen here, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. It's Marie Kondo. It's a book on Audible, and it's a really quick listen, and it's pretty worthwhile. It's got some great tips in there on just how to kind of tidy up your house and tidy up your life because it will make you more productive. So, and then the most important part is positive reinforcement of whatever you're doing. Reward yourself afterwards. So after you get everything back together and you're just super happy, reward yourself. And how do I reward myself? I take out my Oculus that I just got. So I held off, on pulling it out. It came a few days ago. It came on like Monday, but I didn't want to hook it up because I was unorganized. But then I finished organizing, and now it came, and I put it on, and I tested it out, and it's everything that it really is worth it. Yeah, the Oculus really does change everything. So this is my surprise for Mike.
Well, how's that a surprise for me, Chris? We talked about me being there and enjoying it with you.
You're gonna have to come over one of these days and check it out. It's pretty fun. It's a it comes with a couple. It comes with a bunch of free games that are just mind blowing. Like there's this the Eve Valkyrie, even Lucky's Tale. The Lucky's Tale game. It's basically like a platform game, but you can move around, and then there's this other game called Farlands where you're like in an alien world, but when you first get the unit, you put it on and it does this like demo thing, and it was like my jaw just dropped as soon as I put it on, because this is my first time wearing the actual consumer version, and they've done it. They really have. So I know there's skeptics out there. I was definitely a skeptic. I kind of bought it knowing that it was kind of a gamble whether it was going to be good or not. And sure enough, it was worth the wait. I am really, really happy with the unit. So can't wait for you to come check it out, Mike.
Okay. All right. So let's get on to finishing up our episode. So what is going on for the month of June? Probably not much from the last time. So if you got money and want to go to Europe, we can go to Milan, Italy, Germany, and even South Korea or North Korea, since they had a show.
The International Trade Expo.
Yes.
In Pyongyang.
So what's going on in VR? Well, again, I need to find out with this Casino VR. Maybe that's something you could do now that you have.
Tuesday. We're looking at the E3 Expo. Is Tuesday. Yes. Nintendo announces their new Zelda title, which, I don't do a lot of gaming, really. Honestly, I don't. But when it comes to Zelda, I have a really soft spot. I have since I was a kid, and I'm kind of a Zelda nerd.
Yeah, and actually, I'll drop it back to you. So yes, E3 starts Tuesday, but you know what else starts next week?
What?
Well, let's see. Here we go. I'll bring up the
E3 Expo.
E3, which we just talked about. So, yeah, I wanted to go last year and cover it, but I started too late, and it's like, no, you can't cover it. So unless you pay for it. So obviously they don't really need to ask people to come. They have people probably clamoring to pay to show it.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're going to be showing off some new processors. So there's a lot of stuff. Obviously, there'll be a lot of VR stuff. The other thing that, let's see, what is it called? Let me drop back to you. The Apple Developer Conference.
That's right. Also on Tuesday, right?
I believe that is the case as well. So WWDC, Worldwide Developer Conference, will also be next week. Let's see, what is the actual day?
They better bring us like some transportation vehicle or VR or something cool. Come on, let's innovate a little bit here, Apple. Let's keep it going.
How about just making sure your iOS and OS work properly? That would be a good place.
Yeah, my brother just updated his computer to the latest, LCAP, and it bricked his laptop. Day before yesterday. He was bummed.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. A lot of people are really upset with the way Microsoft has handled their OS 10, where literally they upgrade without really letting you know. That hasn't happened to me. I guess it has happened to some people because maybe I just wanted to go to OS 10. But for those people who think Apple is a better choice, can't say that's always the case. I have a couple of machines that I've only upgraded one. The other one I left alone. I do seem to get nagging reminders. So even though it will not make the update for you, you do get nags that say, hey, why haven't you updated yet?
Sure.
And not all the drivers seem to work properly.
And not all the apps, even Apple's own apps like Aperture and things that like they basically back you into a corner with their proprietary BS, if you will, like iTunes, right? They make your iTunes, like once you are an iTunes person and you've got all your music, you've spent probably thousands of dollars in iTunes over the years, right? It only works on iTunes. So it's not like you could take the music out of iTunes and like I can't ever go Droid because they don't have an iTunes or music. I can't get my Apple Music on a Droid. I mean, I would love to try a Droid out, but so they back you into, and they do the same thing with iPhoto and Aperture, which I used Aperture for years and years, right? And they use this proprietary library format, so it doesn't archive your photos, or the file hierarchy is not a standardized thing. It's only like once you have your photos in Aperture, only Aperture can read your photos. And so switching over to Lightroom is next to impossible. But then they discontinue products like iPhoto or the old version of iPhoto. Or they discontinue Aperture like they've done now. So they're not updating it anymore. And then they don't make it backwards compatible with the new OSs. So it's just this really frustrating thing. So then you lose access to all your photos that you had for years unless you keep that machine, you don't update it, so you ignore these nagging reminders. It's just this constant battle with technology like that.
No, it's not just technology. I totally agree with you. I have, as you know, I develop iOS applications. I work on a Mac. But I prefer my Windows machine, one, because I can pretty much do what I want. I also work with some Linux. Linux is pretty fun, and some of the new Linux builds are really, really nice. Case in point, Mint. Wow, I was surprised on how it caused one of my older, what do I have, a Toshiba? No, I have a Samsung laptop. And man, that thing flies. So, and I
you don't have all the overhead, the hardware overhead that some of these other, or even software overhead. Like, Windows is like a 2 gigabyte, at least, probably actually 6 gigabyte thing by this time it's all said and done. By the time you install all the updates and all that, Linux, I mean, you can do a minimal distro of Linux and put it on a Raspberry Pi, and it only eats up, maybe. Who knows, under 100 megs for some of these distros. Well,
I'm not going to bash Windows there. That same Raspberry Pi can run a version of Windows as well. There's a command line version of it, so you can run Windows in a smaller kernel.
And there's x86 Pi-like devices coming on the market now that a lot of people are clamoring for and saying how great they are. I mean, you can get an x86 brand new little mini PC now for under $100. They have a couple of these now. So, and I saw Tested was working with a couple of them, and they have that Udo that was just got fully funded on Kickstarter, and it can, I think, do 4K monitors out of a sub $100 thing that's in basically a Raspberry Pi footprint.
4K monitors. I have to see that to believe it.
I know.
But again, if you're into iOS or OS development for Apple, WWDC, I believe, starts Tuesday. I was hoping to actually find the actual link for Apple on that. One thing that irritated the hell out of me, developer, they had the whole WWDC recorded last year. However, because of Apple and their infinite wisdom, you can't, here we go, you can't run any of those videos unless you're using Apple Safari, which only runs on an Apple, or the app on an iOS device. You can't use it in Chrome. So you're locked in even to look at their development stuff. So I don't know where the thinking is with them. If they, some people have said, oh, well, their new Swift development language is open source, but who's using it, first of all? And two, what good is it if you can't get access to any of their stuff unless you own an Apple product? So it really kind of annoys me how they've locked you in. Now people are talking about their new iOS devices won't have a standard headphone jack. They're now going to, some of their books are only using USB 3, and it's a proprietary USB. Well, I shouldn't say that. It actually isn't, but they really lock you into a specific. Some people think that there's going to be a new MacBook, not necessarily MacBook Pro out that has this new organic LED strip. And some people are saying, why don't you just make a better keyboard or something like that instead of trying to create these features that just say, oh, we've got this, instead of improving the performance. But, we can sit here and complain all we want about these products. The nice thing is we have competition, and people have to change if they want to improve. And some people think Apple is a little stale right now, and if they don't make some market changes in areas and stop just trying to make people want to get large ear cans and things on their iTunes system, they're probably going to go the way of the dodo. Maybe. No, I don't know. That already happened to the Windows mobile platform. All right, Chris, that's it for me. I'm done talking. How about you?
Awesome. Well, we thank all of our wonderful listening audience, and we will see you next week on All Things 3D.